So, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, actually. We have a very interesting panel this afternoon. I'm Pascal Rafsou from the FHH, and we are proud to bring you this panel that will be moderated by James Stacey from Hodinkee. So I leave you with the expert hands of James. James, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm really excited about this panel. We've put together, I think, a really incredible group to chat about the world of social media and kind of FOMO culture and how that applies kind of at a high level, and I hope we get to a very specific level, to talking and sharing watches and luxury goods and the lifestyles that are kind of surrounding those products. And with me today is David Hurley of Watches of Switzerland, and we have Eric Rutherford, we have Jim Kloiber, and we have Edouard Milan. And so we have a really interesting spread where we've got a retailer, an influencer, a PR god, and the CEO of a very successful luxury brand. And I mean, these are kind of four main pillars within the space that would, at this point, basically need to leverage social media if you have any hopes of kind of moving on in the space and finding any traction and growing. And I think it'd be an interesting to start with the brand, with Moser. Edouard, how do you, at a high level, approach social media, or even how did you think about social media when you decided it was something that applied to your work?
Well, I think I personally discovered really the power of social media 5 or 6 years ago when we took over Moser and starting, finding solutions to, as a small independent brand, get out there, spread the word. Get people excited to understand what we are and where we come from. And I always felt that as an independent brand, it's important to engage people, get to communicate. We've been doing that through email with the limitations that you have with emails. And then we discovered that all those potential media got us closer to people. And then it was just by experience and slowly building a community. And we felt, this is successful. You get to know people, they get to know us. We end up selling watches, and it was really pragmatic, no science, just testing things and figuring out with young people in the team who were definitely had more knowledge about it than I had, and then going with the flow.
You figure it was important to bring on people who had kind of grown up with the phone in their hand to translate the brand into kind of a social space?
Definitely, but also pushing them. I think for me, it was clear that we cannot compete with big brands on traditional marketing. And then I told them we have to be the best in the rest. In whatever we are, where money is not a question, but more like the authenticity, the content and stuff like that, then that's where it's fair tough. You can really compete. And that's how we started. And those young people know how to do it, but it's not only young people. I mean, we have a huge audience of people. My father is using social media and he's 75, so I think it's not limited to young people. I think we need the perspective of older people, the way they interact, they understand it as much as young people.
Absolutely. And David, from your standpoint as a retailer, do you think that the strategy is all that different than maintaining the social presence for a specific brand?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit different. We have over 100 stores in the UK. We've got just over 20 here in the US. And feedback. And I think that for us, we're a house of brands. The majority of our stores are multi-brand stores rather than brands itself. And as a consequence, we've got to build up our own. Okay.
You're not going to share.
Let me just take that off. Thank you.
So switch over.
Okay. Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, let's do this again.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I guess it is different for us to each one of the brands in that, we've over 100 stores in the UK. We've over 20 stores here. We run quite a lot of mono-brand stores on behalf of brands. But the majority of our stores are multi-brand. And the customer's got a choice in terms of where they want to go and shop for luxury watches. Choice with other multi-brand retailers. There are a lot of the brands that are going direct themselves, and therefore, we have to focus on our own brand. and our own stories, as well as just representing the brands itself. So yeah, very, a different focus for us. We've got to develop our own unique content online about us, about what differentiates us to other multi-brand retailers out there, what makes us different to the monobrands, the independence of choice. So that's something that's really important for us, our own unique content.
And within that kind of strategy, do you find that you're using influencers, you're using in-house photography, assets, storytelling, like you have a team that's kind of developing that presence for you?
Yeah, we do. We have internal teams, and we also use external support to develop that and to develop our own stories. For example, for the last 2 or 3 years, we've been doing live streams from and holding panels in SIHH in Basel, where we're talking about the new product. I know obviously other people are doing that as well, but for retailers, I think that's something that was pretty unique when we did it. So yeah, that's very important for us, and we have to do unique content. I think one of the difficulties as a multi-brand retailer, if you just take the brand assets and utilize those online, is everybody's already seen those assets, so it doesn't really differentiate you from anybody else. So anything that you can do in terms of your own unique content, your own unique stories, makes a real difference.
Absolutely. And Eric, I would extend essentially the same question your way, because you're.
I tend to do that.
Because you're coming from an entirely different corner of the same world. How do you approach a strategy? How do you approach creating the contacts that allow you to share these stories on behalf of other entities?
Well, hi everybody. Thank you for being here today. First off, I want to say I was actually at the opening of Watches in Switzerland, and are we on? Now we might have killed this monitor.
Do we have no monitor?
Hello. Want to try that?
Check 1 2. 1 2. Okay.
Check one. Hi. Hi guys. Can you hear me?
All right.
Perfect. So let's start again.
Please.
So actually going back to your question, so it was great. Actually, I was at the opening of Watches in Switzerland in Soho, and I was invited as an influencer. I know, go figure, I look too old to be an influencer, but I am, and that's what they tell me. But it's great, going back to what we were talking about earlier, is I am included in getting out a message, right? Creating content that speaks to a brand. And one of the things that they did at Watches in Switzerland launch was they had a wide range of men and women, different ages, different positions, whether it's fashion, culture, art, whatever it is, invited to this launch. So they were creating content that spoke to these different audiences. And one of the things that I found exciting, and what I tried to share with my audience, is that you're coming with me when I'm experiencing something, whether it's a launch of a new watch or a new fashion brand or whatever it is. So I tend to speak to my audience as I'm going in, and what they've done in this space is, besides being laid out beautifully with the different brands on the first floor, they also invite you downstairs, and they've created a lounge space with a bar and books and things that'll bring other audience that have different interests into this space as well as looking to buy a watch. So I just think I applaud you for what you've done and created. And one thing I try to do is kind of bridge that gap, depending if, my biggest demographic right now is ages 25 to 34. And it's pretty much split 60-40 men and women. So I try to speak to you just as, not specifically to one area, but just as you, as my friends who are coming along for the journey. And
when you got your start in this kind of world, what phase was it in versus today? When you got your start in building that sort of personal brand that's then translated to other brands, what was the state versus now?
So my background is I was on the event side, producing for brands all over the world for 15 years. And part of me even joining social media was so that I knew that I was informed so that I could speak to my brands because I was experiencing it. And I was always telling stories through images or video. And what ended up happening was I developed a reputation, and my handle's Mr. Rutherford. And so people began to rely on me because they valued what I was putting out, what I was sharing, which was very much a positive message, very inclusive. And so when brands started coming to me, they wanted to share and participate in that. And that was only just 4 years ago. So I came to this scenario, I was 47, and I'm 51 now. So going to what we were speaking to earlier, a brand shouldn't just speak to, we'll say, one age group, or we'll just say the youth. It's include everybody. We were having a discussion last night at dinner. You know, so often brands will market just to women or just to men, especially in the, we'll say, the luxury watch industry. And the women that I was speaking to last night, they said, don't just talk to me because I'm a woman, talk to me because I'm interested, because I like how a watch is made, I like the mechanics, I like how it looks. Some people may say it's masculine looking, I like it because of the weight, I like it because of the shape of it. So it's one thing I try to relate when I'm speaking with a brand or working with a brand, to kind of expand upon the marketing that you're already doing so that it does become more inclusive just to everyone.
That's an interesting point, you know, in the hopes of making something like this more inclusive rather than, because the idea of luxury isn't always about being inclusive. There's an exclusive aspect to a lot of the products, whether it be from their price point or the level to which they're manufactured. And I guess it's more about the enthusiasm and being able to appreciate it, which is universal at a certain level. And Edouard, do you have any examples of where you operated because I know that Moser doesn't do, you know, the traditional influencer partner sort of relationships, but do you have examples where you were able to partner with another entity to help share the sort of perspective?
Well, we don't use influencers as such, but I consider all the Moser owners, the community that we have built over time organically to be our influencers, and they're amazing in the way that, you know, they're passionate about what we do, and they relay all the messages. I remember 5 years ago having to respond to criticism myself, and today I don't have to do it anymore. I have tons of people doing it for me, and that's quite nice, because in a way, we don't have to please everyone, but we have those people who understand, and they contribute to getting to new people all the time, new audience. Going to your question, we do it sometimes with brands or with people where we share something. A simple thing, for example, there's a shoe brand called Maison Cortet. It's a small kind of niche shoe, very high-end brand where we realize we have similar philosophy. There's some design elements that we share, and our customers are very similar. And we decided to do a few events together. And you know, they invited us to their boutique. We presented our watches. We invited our customers. They invited their customer, and we did some cross content based on that for our social media, and that worked really well. And we realized that some people who wear Moser actually wear Maison Cortet shoes as well, and we didn't know that before. And then hopefully more and more will get that.
There's a little bit of a discovery in that process, I guess, because some of this is uncharted territory, especially if you're talking 4, 5, 6 years ago. I mean, it was uncharted territory. People were just kind of figuring out a lot of the platforms and finding a way to operate within the strengths and the weaknesses of the format. I would like if we could pass a mic to Jim briefly. Jim, when a brand wants to excel in this space and they want to use other people and work through partnerships to do it, what are they typically looking for in return? What's the end result of a successful engagement?
I think it varies depending on the brand. What we're most focused on from our agency's perspective is more the luxury space, which I think, does it work? Can you hear? Really close. Oh my gosh. You know, it's very different if you are looking to market or sell lipstick or denim versus a $20,000 or a $50,000 watch. So when we're talking about the luxury space, We take a very strategic approach to social media and influencers in particular. And I think brands are really looking for, at the end of the day, storytelling. They need help telling their story, getting that message out there. I think they're looking for positioning, so making sure that their product, their brand, their approach is positioned appropriately in the marketplace, that they are doing something special and unique and compelling. They're looking to expand their audience, to expand their reach, to talk to new potential consumers that they may not see through traditional media or they may not see walking through the doors of their boutique. So I think social media and influencers, I think, are an amazing tool if used effectively. But you have to have a strategy. I think you have to have an end game, and I think you have to be committed to it. I always tell clients, this is not a one-off. Do not, especially if you're in the luxury space, do not just do a one-off kind of pay-for-play thing. You should be looking for people that also personify your brand, that appreciate and understand your brand and your products, and that you can have a long-term relationship with.
And David, would you say that translates at a store level, where you're seeing people, let's say an engagement like that was successful, like what Jim described, are you seeing people who didn't know brands, didn't know various elements of the industry walking in and having some new level of education?
Yeah, I think I think it really works. I think again, it has to be you have to be committed to it. You can't just do something like this, whether it's a collaboration, and just measure it off of metrics alone. You really need to be in it for the long term and really be sure that it's right. It needs to be a collaboration that makes sense. There needs to be a real link to the brand, whether it's online or offline. And for example, in our store in Soho, in New York, we've got a great bar downstairs, and we've done that in collaboration with Debt & Co, who run a great bar in the East Village. I mean, I love drinking, but I wouldn't know the first thing about actually setting up and running a bar itself. So you want to go with somebody that's a credible partner and an expert in that field, and adds to the overall experience. And I think that's the same whether it's online or offline.
And when it comes to navigating as a retailer online, you obviously have a personal story, your personal brand, but you're also representing several other brands at any one moment, maybe in the same day on your Instagram feed, for example. How do you navigate the goals that you may have versus the goals from the brands, or do you have requests from brands to have certain things make it to the Instagram page or the Facebook page?
It's an ongoing discussion, I guess, to be fair. It's, as I said earlier, one of the constant backs and forth is the brands do a great job of creating their own awareness, and they have all of the assets that they want to use. I think the more and we utilize that. We obviously utilize that quite a lot online. But I think the more that we can take their product and show it off using our own stories, the better. The better for us and the better for the brand.
So to certain
Otherwise,
levels,
it's just limited engagement, really.
Right. And that way you're operating as a filter.
Yes.
Something to kind of steer people or your buyers in some metric to the product that you think would be not only speak to them, but might be the right choice.
Yeah, and I think we always need to be careful on that as well. As everything we want to show is our independence. So we've got to make sure we represent all of the brands that we carry online, both in store and online, that they're shown appropriately.
For sure. And Eric, from the other side of it, when you sit down with a brand that is looking for an activation, they're looking for some help, what are the things that they ask for that you instantly go, you don't get it yet?
So I think the challenge is, it's still relatively a new space, right? For what works for one brand doesn't necessarily work for another brand, and you have to find obviously we hear this word authenticity and truthfulness in your brand, and you have to be able to tell your story, be true to that, and find those influencers that are on brand with you. And so when someone comes to me, I always am under the assumption you're coming to me specifically because of what I'm sharing and what I'm putting out there. So when they start, and I get it, because I was on the brand side for years, there's certain things that you want to be hitting, whether it's sharing information, creating buzz, building awareness, purchase, whatever it might be. And what I would say to a brand is, when you start this conversation or someone starts it with me, be really clear why you're coming to me. I'm willing to create with you because I always look at it's a team effort. We're doing this, it's a true partnership, but if you start wanting me to speak in a different voice that's not true to who I am, then my audience is actually going to smell that and I'll actually get called out. And then the brand's going to get called out too. And then it really doesn't make sense. And I think the great thing in this medium, and again, because every day is a new day, what worked a year ago doesn't necessarily work now. What worked 6 months ago doesn't necessarily work now. So it's finding your way as a brand, how to tell your story, and being individual in that, and trusting that, and being consistent with that message, but also wanting to continue to push it forward. You know, myself as they use this word influencer, which again, I've been doing this for 2 decades, and we didn't call them influencers then. It literally is like these word of mouth campaigns, and that's really what we're doing now, right? It's you trusting me as a friend, someone who is similar in their likes, similar in their interests, and maybe still wants to discover something new, whether it's a new watch, something new in beauty, or whatever it might be. And so we're sharing this journey together. And so when a brand comes, I want to share this journey with them. So I will also say to them, great, what are the points that you want to hit in this story that we're creating, in a moment, in a launch, or whatever it might be, in a new product that you want to get out there. So let's put that together and let's create a strategy around it. And sometimes it can be very raw because you don't want it to be, you know, one thing that I've noticed, because the influencer, we'll say, market has been around now for a few years, many of those influencers who have millions of followers at this point, you know, and this is only my opinion, all of this is only my opinion, they're so stylized now and so beautifully shot that many times, for me as a consumer, I've lost that personal touch from them. I've lost that, you know, like their emotional response that I was getting from them before. And again, I want everyone to be successful in this space. So when I'm working with a brand, you know, let's still make it touchable, attainable, part of a conversation. And even if it's aspirational, like what we were talking about earlier, it's still within reach. It's not out of reach. So like if, you know, talking with a brand and great, let's figure out how we can, in shooting an image, I'm pushing more and more brands to do more video so that there's more engagement, so there's more moving images. You know, and I think it's, again, every brand is different in the relationship that I build with them. I want to honor who they are as a brand, and so that our voices share the space.
I think I understand what you mean, and then it's an interesting point to consider the fact that there's a level of production that might actually be detrimental on something like Instagram. And Edward, I don't know if you've come across that word. And I mean, we could all name a few. There's definitely lots of watch brands that are literally taking like their normal press image, and that's the post for the day. And there's others that it's a little bit more experiential, feels a little bit more lifestyle. Did you ever have to kind of navigate that course in building a social media presence for Moser?
I think for Moser, the most important thing when we create content is the message. It has to go beyond the product. I think posting a nice picture is quite easy. But what we really want through social media is engage people, create discussions, being positive, negative. We need negative to create a discussion. Mm-hmm. So for us, every time we work on a new campaign or a new content, it's really about the message. You know, we worked on the Swiss Made, we worked on connected watches, and try to obviously have a nice picture or something to symbolize it, or something crazy to symbolize it. But really for us, when we start the discussion, is about what do we want to say? How do we create this kind of viral effect? And the viral effect, in our case, always worked when there was discussions, arguments, people for it and people against it. And that's really the starting point for anything we do. And then we try to mix different topics. I mean, for us, it's important to talk about a history, you know, 190 years old brand. A lot of people forget that. In the case of Moser, I meet so many people who tell me, oh, Moser, yeah, the cheese watch. Well, that's great. They know Moser by now. But my responsibility today is how do I get them to know the rest of what we are and what we do and how we do it and what's behind it. So it's difficult to find the right mix between those different elements. As you said, it's having the right people creating content. We have a few people even inside the factory who have freedom to create content for the main account, being watchmakers, being people from marketing, etc. And I think that creates this authenticity that you were talking about, and not being too curated. I mean, everything we do that is too curated has no impact. Everything that is a little bit crazy, low budget, is the thing that works. At the same time, it might not be always luxury, but at the same time, it gets more and more people to know who we are. And I think it works for Moser, maybe not for all the bigger brands who have this really like this big luxury aura that they need to maintain. Well, for us, it's different, and as long as it works, we will continue in that way.
Yeah.
Can I just go
Absolutely.
off So I love what you're just saying. It's, you know, obviously when Instagram launched Story, right? It literally, one of the things that you began to see with the posting of a beautiful image, again, beautiful image, product looked great, lighting was amazing, styling was crazy, but sometimes it lost that emotional response when you're looking to buy something, right? Or connect with an audience. The great thing with Story now is, the exciting thing is, it is much more raw. It's in the moment, it's engaging. You literally can, as an influencer, you literally can bring someone with you in the moment to while you're experiencing it. And so as a brand, I think that's great. You can use all of these assets. You have a beautiful image, but then also make it come to life. You know, engage with the audience that way. And you know, the great thing is you can have the audience ask questions in the moment. You can literally engage, very similar to what you can do on Twitter right now. So it's much more immediate, it's much more personable. And I think to have that as part of your strategy is crucial at this point.
I would certainly agree. Whatever tools are on the platform should be leveraged to the best of the ability. You mentioned that it's difficult to have, you know, a discourse without some negativity, and obviously that's the not the downside, but that's the other side to opening up your brand or your personal brand or what have you to the public forum, a growing public forum. The more successful you become, the more comments there are. How do you navigate the sometimes pervasive, but not always pervasive, negativity that can kind of weave itself into comment sections, live broadcast, things like that? Floor's open, whoever, but certainly, Edouard, you mentioned the existence of some negativity. Because I don't think it's not actually a bad thing on,
That's what
on
I
its
said.
whole.
I think it's actually a very good thing, providing it's constructive. It's not always constructive, but as long as it's constructive, I think it's very good. And it works very well for small brands like ours. I don't need to please everyone. I don't want to please everyone. I want people to love what I do, and for that, I'll have people who hate what I do. And when I took over Moser, everybody I met told me, "Oh yeah, I like Moser. It's a nice brand." And I was like, "Why are they not more successful then?" But it's not sufficient to like a brand to spend $15,000, $20,000, $30,000. You need to love it. And I think by being provocative, sometimes, you know, state really what you believe in, and even if it means people don't like it, then that works. And I think what is important is not to take it too personal. In the beginning, for me, it was very difficult not to take it. You know, it's your baby, and then people say that sucks, and that's not very constructive as a comment. But you get a lot of those, and then at some point you see the results, and then you say, okay, the more I get that sucks, the more I sell watches, then there must be something good about it. So. Not taking it too personal, and also the rest of the team. I mean, it's easier for me to take a little bit of distance, but some people who have created the content or are in there and also as passionate, you need to teach them to say, listen, hey, it's certain people who don't know you, don't know what we've done, what's behind it. They might just have seen a picture, they don't see the message behind it, so forget it. We move to the next thing, or we talk to the other people, and then you get, you know, the positive energy, and that compensates all the rest.
Absolutely.
Yeah, going off what you're saying, I think staying true to who you are, whether, listen, I happen to be the brand and I'm a person, right? And I think, but if you stay true to that, so when the negativity does come up, and yeah, sometimes I have some of the most horrible, like, just plain out mean things said to me on my page. And my mom reads this, no, I'm kidding. She does though. What I have learned to do, and it's a daily practice, is where because listen, if you're gonna be a part of the conversation, whether it's as a brand, as a public brand, or even as a person, right? You are putting yourself in this space. And one of the things that I know that I practice is, you know, if you're gonna take in the good, you have to also be able to take in the bad. but not take it personally, but take it as a business. You know, if someone is saying something, calling me out, like say I did a collaboration with the brand and I lost my voice in it. It was a decent amount of money and I wanted to work with them, and what ended up happening was I literally was regurgitating every piece of information that they wanted me to put into this post. I wasn't visible. I wasn't a part of this. And so the people that follow me, that look to me for positivity, for authenticity, for truthfulness, for a joy in life, because truly that's how I believe. You always, every day should be about living your best life, no matter what. And when people called me out for not being true to myself, they were right. And so what I was able to do in separating, because again, some people got really nasty with what their comments, separate from it, but also learn from it. Learn at the end of the day, staying true to who I am or true to who the brand is. And what I find is even if I have to defend myself, I know that there's a strength from that. So it's helped me engage, you know, even grow even further, because I knew I'm willing to fight for that truthfulness. And that's what I would say to any brand. You know, you can't be something to everyone. If you stay true to who yourself, actually more people are going to respond to that than less.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's, you know, I think the constructive criticism is fine. I think everybody knows just with the anonymity of online, just part of that just comes with the territory, and you just got to take it. And sometimes even with that, it's still better for people to be talking about you than not. And you see that with a lot of the watch brands when they release new product. So.
No, I would absolutely agree. And Edward, you had something to add?
Exactly what I wanted to say. I mean, in many cases, what we learned, and that's what I told my team also, those people who come and say that sucks, you engage them. And they know the brand by now. And they could have not known the brand otherwise. And many of them, we managed to, you know, get to know them and then convert them into Moser fans. And I think, again, we need to take it ourselves constructively and then see it as an opportunity every time they engage with us.
And I certainly agree in that, you know, from my perspective, it works in kind of a stage where you read the comment that you probably wish you hadn't read, or more commonly you end up having to tell your friends, don't send me the comments because I'm not reading them, or like you give them some time and then anyways, the comment gets to you.
I actually like reading them.
You like reading them? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, and the only reason is because, and anybody in brand strategy, one of the things, listen, I'm not doing this just by myself. I'm doing it because I want to engage with people. I enjoy it. I enjoy what people have to say. You know, I enjoy, like, even being here for the last 2 days, people have been stopping me, and I like engaging, and to me that's so key, and it's just because I'm a person, you know, as a brand or whatever, but I think also as a brand, you do learn something, and the wonderful thing is, many times if someone does say something negative, many times the followers that I have, they'll jump in and say something, and then I'll even engage with a person who has, again, said something not so nice, and then be able to talk with them more one-on-one to see even why you said what you said. Because many times it's to get attention or to have an engagement with you, which is, again, why this platform is so successful.
And a follow-up to that, and maybe Jim could jump in if he feels so inclined. When brands see those comments coming through an influencer sort of scenario, how do they respond to that? What's the level of comfort with the negativity that can kind of be channeled back to a brand through an activation?
Yeah, it fully depends on the brand and how experienced or sophisticated they are with social media. The ones that have been doing it a while, I think they take it in stride. They understand what this medium is. It's not advertising, it's social media. It's about a dialogue. And to Eric's point, you know, and Edward's point, embrace it, learn from it, convert those people. It really is the medium, and it's kind of the wonderful part about social media is you get a dialogue with the consumer that you might not normally have. So take advantage of that. As I said, learn from it and use it to your advantage.
I mean, and there's a lot of examples, especially some very famous and very hilarious examples of brands that turn around on these comments. Taco Bell has an incredible Twitter feed, and they take no guff from anyone. And they must hire some very good people because it's quick and they're very good at it. But there's a lightheartedness that belies a lot of the negativity that kind of skims under the surface. And like Edward said, a lot of it, there's a conversion point, especially with, you might have 200 people on your side and one negative. Those people will say something and it balances out, and sometimes you don't even have to get involved. I think where my mind is going in this conversation is like, when it comes down to it, and anyone can jump in, David, I'd love your perspective on this. Does a successful social media presence convert to sales? Are you selling more watches?
Yeah, well, yes, I think it does, first of all. I mean, we have a significant online luxury business in the UK as well as offline. We're about to go transactional in the US on our websites here. And, you know, that ability to be able to track, you know, that traffic going from online to offline or purchasing is very important. But it's not the be-all and end-all. You know, you have that old cliche of, you know I wasted 50% of my marketing money, I just don't know which 50%. And you've got to take chances. You know, if you just run everything off of metrics, then you're just going to keep on going after the same group of people that possibly everybody else is going after. You're not really growing your reach.
Right.
So you've got to market differently. You've got to maybe spend money with different advertisers that may not be traditionally a luxury. Otherwise, you're not going to reach to a new market. But yes, it does make a difference. I think we're all still learning in terms of just how much that is. We're able to track a certain amount of it, but not all.
Yeah, some of it's in the ether at a certain extent where you're just, maybe they know about the brand and they end up at your store when they're on a vacation or something like that. And
yeah, you know, a lot of it is, you know, you can obviously, you know, you have all the stats in terms of engagement with Instagram, etc. And obviously you can do retail from there. Maybe it's the website itself that's more transactional where you see that, and in terms of traffic coming from there into the stores. But yeah, it's not possible. I certainly, anything that I've seen to date hasn't shown me that it's just impossible to directly track that as of yet. But
right.
It has certainly, for sure, it has an effect.
And Edward, do you figure that the social media presence operates as a layer kind of between a possible buyer and a retail space, or are you finding that you're talking to people who have engaged with the brand and found their Moser directly because of the social media presence?
I think we have all kind of customers. I mean, 5 years ago, I had whenever I would meet a retailer, he would tell me, like, you know, the big problem is you need to do more advertising because nobody knows Moser. And today I never have that. I mean, I go to my retailers and they never comment. They have people coming in asking for Moser, and we don't do traditional marketing. That's all we do. So we created awareness. We have people going into the store because seeing a picture is one thing. Going in the store and trying the watch is something different. And we see the result there. We see people engaging with us, asking, oh, I love this watch that you posted. Where can I find it? And I have my team or myself saying, oh, you go to Watches of Switzerland, you go to Buchholz, you go to Cellini, there's one watch there, where do you live? You engage, maybe you try to bring them to something else. And we have the customers coming in the store with a picture of the watch that they saw on Instagram or on Facebook or wherever, and they say, I want this watch. So I think there's many ways to convert it into sales. What we don't do is direct sales, but in a way we bring them so close to the final transaction that you can call it e-commerce already as it is.
Just tell them to go to Watches of Switzerland.
Sorry?
Just tell them to go to Watches of Switzerland.
Yeah. Which store?
And Eric,
I'll hand out my card to everybody afterwards with the store listings.
Eric, with your side of it, do you get feedback from your followers that they've engaged on the product, they bought the product? Are they sending you pictures of what they bought? If it's something like, how does it work in terms of your feedback loop?
Well, you know, yes, I actually have. So just to put it plainly and very general, and it's interesting, you know, just working with multiple different types of brands and in different spaces, how people engage. Like, perfect example, you know, I'll post a suit that I just wore or a watch this weekend. I've already had people messaging me, like, is this watch available now? Where can I get this? And many times it comes through DMs. It won't even be on my page. But and one of the things I want to go back to, just even with this panel, it's, you know, I don't think the power of the influencer is certainly going to go away anytime soon. I think brands have gotten smarter and how to leverage the influence of an influencer, and even just calling myself out. You know, when you're in a partnership with an influencer, engage them, ask them to do more. And talking about sales, like make sure they're reading the comments on their page. So if someone's asking you about a watch, or is it available, or is it in store, when did you get this, or a suit, or whatever it is, that's part of their contract. Because I think you can post a picture or post a video, and then it just is there. The relationship is over. And to me, one of the things it was brought up earlier, it's in working with an influencer, it's creating a relationship that isn't just a one-off, so that it's consistent over time. And even as an influencer, like I just did H&M's global holiday campaign. And, I was one of the main people, and as it began to roll out, it was rolling out all over the world. Well, I hadn't even seen it yet, but people that were fans of mine or following were tagging me in Barcelona, Thailand, everywhere over the world, because that's the relationship I have with my followers. And then I would repost what they had sent me. So then I was further engaging what they were having. And the interesting thing is H&M was seeing me do it and was appreciating what I was doing. So when they first were putting the images out, they're beautiful images and beautiful, great video, and we shot film, and they weren't tagging me. But as they saw my engagement, because I was invested in the campaign, because I believed in what we were doing and I had such a great time with them, they then started adding me to their post, and then which only wanted me to actually engage more with my followers, to the point then the followers were going, when you just posted that sweater, I went to go buy it and it's sold out. So I don't know if I was a direct result of that, but more and more people were engaging with the brand itself. So I think there's many ways to that increase engagement, which at the end of the day will increase sales.
Fantastic. That certainly makes sense to me, and you see that play out on various campaigns and interactions online. We're going to move into Q&A in just a few minutes. Before we get there, a question for each of you to mull on just for a moment. If you were starting today, a brand new brand today, the first post, what is it? And on what platform? What platform would you prefer? Or what tip would you offer somebody in that job?
I want to answer directly. I think it would have been easier 5 or 6 years ago, when I think we benefited as new brands a lot from big brands not mastering those tools, and they've been catching up quickly. And obviously, money today, even in social media, is playing a big role, as you can do a lot of sponsoring. Now, if I had to do a post today and about a new brand, it would definitely not be about product and the brand itself. It would be something aspirational, a source of inspiration that I would have for my brand, and would try to start to build like a connection about something that links us to the brand and the customer, to eventually drive them to who we are and what we do.
A broader scale statement of this kind of mind space. It should be
artistic and with a message. As I said, I think for me that's the key in everything we do. It's not about the quality. Of course, it has to be a nice picture, but it has to convey a message so that people can react, and not just like, oh, I like it, it's nice. No, okay. It has to go beyond that.
Something to start a conversation, to grow. Okay. What do you think, Jim?
That's a really hard question. I would say it has to. Everything Edward said is exactly right, and I think probably going to be similar for many brands. But I think today, what I've learned is it does need to be visual. It needs to be authentic to whatever it is that you're saying. The more personal and literally either having you in the picture or whoever is behind it is important. But I think having fun with it. I really think people are scrolling through images all day, and if it's just a pretty picture, or if it's not a pretty picture, they're not going to really pay attention to it unless it speaks to them. So I think the more intriguing, interesting, funny, clever, dynamic you can make it, like it needs to be impactful, but it needs to be true to who you are and what you're trying to put out there. So I would say authenticity is still really, really important in an image.
Everything that the two of them said. I think the biggest thing, what I would say, because then I have brands approach me all the time, just because of my background, but also I'm in it on this side of it right now, and like, what should we do this? Or we should try this? Should we do video? Should we do whatever? And really, to Edward's point, it's like you need to be prepared to launch on every platform, because some people still use Facebook. That's what they use. That's how they engage. And they're not necessarily on Instagram. And some people are on Instagram. Some people are on Twitter. So I think in creating the story around your brand, one, you have to have fun with it and be willing to break it down and what the essence and spirit of that. Because I think many times a brand will come to me and they'll have an idea of where they want to go, and yet what they're telling me, it's a disconnect. And they're really unwilling to strip away to like the 3 core things, the spirit of what the brand is, and then create the content around that brand and trust what you're doing to be able to launch out there. And I love a bit of mystery to begin to pull people in, to get their attention. And then as you slowly tweak it out, but you can't be so veiled that you literally have no idea what you're talking about. So there has to be, whether it's a word or a phrase or an image. Like, again, this is like the worst example, but I just happened to watch the Fire Festival documentary, and I don't know if you've all watched that. Again, they did an incredible marketing job of building buzz around this incredible failure of a festival. But I don't know, are you all familiar with the Fire? Okay, right. So remember in the document, they at one point they just posted the orange tile. The engagement that they had, and it's as much going back to what Jim was saying, people are scrolling through, right? And that orange popped out as you're scrolling through. So that image, your emotional response that you had to that tile, all of a sudden engaged you. So then all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, I want to know more. And it could be for a variety of reasons what that moment or that orange tile or whatever it is that a brand puts out there, but you've begun the relationship. So then you need to follow it up. So what I've experienced with a brand is newer brands, they don't have the follow-up, or they're not ready to then deepen or expand the relationship. And that's one thing I would say to them. Be ready for what's step 2 or 3 or 4, or once you've launched, how are you following up with that engagement that you've already created?
Okay.
Well, I still haven't got my refund for my Fire Festival ticket, so that's a sore subject. I think you have to decide what it is that you stand for, and what story is it that you want to tell. And so it's not just one post, and it's not just Instagram or Facebook, and it's not just online. I mean, that may work for certain brands, but it doesn't for others. So it has to be part of an overall aligned strategy, and you've really got to commit to it.
Fantastic.
Or get the Fire Festival people.
Or, yeah. All right, I think we're going to jump into Q&A. So if you have a question, there's a gentleman walking around with a microphone. Just throw your hand in the air and we can get started.
Mic's not working. Oh, there it is.
There we are.
All right. Hi, guys. I have kind of a 2-part question for Eric and Edward. And it goes into what you were talking about when people DM you about watches and they say, where do I get this watch? And David, you mentioned Edward, tell him watches of Switzerland. So as a influencer, when you get that question, is your answer typically as vague as your nearest authorized dealer, or is it Mosier.com, or where do you lead them to go to make that sale? And then secondly, Edward, what would you like your influencers to say? Would you like them to say your retailers, or, Hodinkee recently did a piece on omni-channel marketing and omni-channel sales. Do you want that direct relationship with the consumer? Do you want to make that extra margin back? Would you prefer to go to have an online store and say, come to us, we'll get you what you need? So, Eric, do you want to go first?
Great 2-part question, by the way.
Thank you.
So how I like to, every influencer engages with their audience differently, right? What I like to do is, because if someone is taking the time to reach out to me to talk about a relationship that I have a brand with, and many times the relationship that I have with a brand is one that I wanted to be a part of. So I consider it a true relationship. We're doing this together. So when someone reaches out to ask me about where they can get a watch, I'll have engaged with the watch brand themselves so that I have the information. And so I'll start a dialogue with the person like, great, well, where do you live? And I'll say like, great, oh, well, there's a store here. Oh, you know what, if it's not there, try online. And many times, even when I direct them initially, and they'll go, oh, well, it's sold out here, but have you tried someplace else? Because to me, it's as important for you as someone who's coming to me to ask me for some help or some guidance. I want to help you because I'm also helping my relationship with them because I feel we're in this as a partnership together. So if they want me to direct them online, I will. If we're talking about, like, say, when I was just at the opening of Watches of Switzerland, I had people file like, what was it like? What were the watches there? I told them, you know what, go down to Soho, it's easy access, it's great, this is what was there, these are the brands that I love, you know. I want to engage with them more, to give them the information that they have.
So it is at a point local.
It just depends, you know, it's if I can drive them locally, because many times the relationship that I have is that I was there and experiencing it. So, because I like to take my audience along with me on the journey. So yes, I will drive them locally, but again, if it's not available there, then I will give them the link to go online.
Gotcha.
Well, yeah, I think we should work together, but no, for us, it's very important to be as specific as possible. So we would, in a case, as I said, we don't work with influencers as such, but for us, it's important to be able to tell the customer exactly where he would find it. And we're in a global world, and usually we ask where they're from and try to find the closest, or we ask them, where do you buy usually? In many cases, when they ask, it's usually a piece that is difficult to find, but we know exactly where each piece is available, and we can drive them to the stores. So for me, it's very important to be as specific as possible. I cannot give access to influencers to our ERP or our systems to know where the watches are, but I think we need to engage that discussion. I mean, with Instagram, with WhatsApp, with whatever, it's very quick to get an answer and be able to be specific to the end customer. I think that's what it expects. We're talking about instantaneous answers, but as detailed and specific as possible.
Gotcha. All right. So, but you would like to keep it to your retailers, to your markets. That's where you kind of give,
Yes.
That's your sales arm, is that?
I mean, they invest in us. They trust us. And for us, I think over the years, we realized that we had so many opportunities to sell direct, and yet we didn't. We brought them to our retailers, and they love that. And they build more trust. They see the potential. They see, you know, that we are fair to them. And over time, it pays off tremendously.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Hello. I have a question for Edouard. Do you ever see a campaign where you're not going to have fun and be playful with your advertisements?
They always have to be a little bit of fun, but yeah, even if it's painful sometimes. But no, I think for us, it's our language. I mean, it happens to be the way we have a young team. I'm actually one of the eldest in the company now. And I think we're having, as we said, it has to be fun. It has to be authentic. I think social media gets us much closer to our customers, and you know, we're passionate about what we do. We want to express this passion with fun, with humor, with provocation, with I mean, our own style. And I think as long as we can keep that, it works. I think you said as soon as you try to do it differently, people feel it. And so far we ask ourselves at the moment, just building on what I said before, how do we express more about our history or the fact that we produce all our movements in the house? How do you express that, staying true to what Moser is in terms of language? It's not easy. If we do it like other brands, where it doesn't match the image of our brand and what we are. So we need always to think, how do we bring those ingredients of a little bit of humor, a little bit of provocation, but yet talk about very important subjects and about the brand itself. And so no, in the future, I think we will continue the same way. So far, it's been working for us, so there's no reason to change.
And do you think that without your kind of not so stiff impression that you give off in your advertisements, that you would have gotten as much recognition as you've gotten at this point?
I'm not sure I understood the question, but if it's about being a little bit irreverent and provocative, how or whether it has a negative impact on the brand, I don't think so. I think it's important to be different. As I said before, I always look for the singularity. I need to be different as an independent, small brand. We need to do something that, I mean, again, I don't need to know and please everyone, but I need the people who understand us to love what we do. And yes, sometimes we could be more luxury, or we could be more like the others, but I don't want to be like the others. Whenever we take a decision about a campaign, we ask ourselves, and I won't mention the brand, but we say, would that brand do it? If we say yes, then we don't do it. That's simple like that.
Cool. Thank you.
Anyone else? Hands up.
Hi, so first of all, thank you for coming, and your insights have been super interesting. So my question is regarding when it goes, like you said, when social media has positive comments and negative comments, what happens when it goes terribly bad? And obviously I'm thinking of AP with the 1159 this past month. So it's a twofold question, and the first question is, do you think it's a hit, a miss? Will they be able to revive it, fix it like they did in 1972 with the Royal Oak? And the second part question is, how would you react if this was your product, your client, or your store?
It's a bit of a poison chalice question, but I'll take it. First of all, I don't think it went bad. It's the watch that everybody was talking about. Sorry. I don't think it went bad. It was the watch that everybody was talking about. You know, some people out there are just going to get offended about everything. You know, if you don't like the watch, then you don't like the watch. That's fine. I like the watch. And it was what everybody was talking about. To be fair to AP, I think it was the right thing to do to launch a new product, 100%. You know, honestly, I think if they'd released an invention, you know, to change water into wine, some people would have gone, yeah, but it's not the Royal Oak. So it's going to take some time, but let's see whether people are going to be able to get their hands on it. I bet you'll sell out pretty quickly once it hits their boutiques.
So just going off to your point, there's always going to be someone, right, that is going to have something to say if someone's trying to do something differently, because some people don't do well with change. And I think as a brand, you have to constantly be evolving and willing to move forward, but also still staying true to yourself and your core, right? Like the heritage, you can't just throw out your history. We're talking about history, right? That's part of your value. That's part of your DNA. And so I think what they did we want to continue to grow. And this is what we think, this is what we believe in. And so this is what we're going to do. Were there some negative comments? Absolutely. Do you throw the baby out with the bathwater because there's this loud kind of deafening negativity has happened for a moment? Well, certainly in this space, that moment is already past. So as a brand, what I would say, and I think we would all agree, it's like, great, you take everything in, what you're learning from the moment, you read the comments, you listen, you go back to saying, do we believe in what we did in this launch, in creating this product? More often than not, the brand's gonna say yes. Great, where along the way did it miss a mark with a certain group of people? Let's learn from it. Let's talk with them. And still make it more of a learning moment, and I hate to say this, but a teachable moment as a brand, because you don't want to throw away the hard work or the brand equity that you've created with somebody. You know, just because, you know, you've seen it too with many of the fashion houses that right now, like with Virgil Abloh, right, taking over Louis Vuitton. Well, he took it over for a reason, to bring it forward. But one of the great things that he has found is a balance with the heritage, with the history of this brand. So he's incorporating that while he's moving it forward. Some people hate it. Other people and a new audience love it. So I think you just have to be willing to keep moving forward and listen and learn as you're going.
Maybe well, also 2 words from a brand perspective. I think that obviously, there's, as you said, there's a lot to learn for other brands and for us. And you know, when the first in class fails a little bit, everybody is quite excited. And I think AP is extremely successful and will continue to be very successful. I think what we as brands, when we look at this situation, we kind of learn from it is the importance of the first picture and the first messages. I think every time we do something, we try to make sure that, you know, the first message is positive and the first picture is like the best we can get. And I feel the problem is the expectations were so high on this project, and then suddenly one picture that came out, what was maybe not the best picture out. I think this product, as you said, is amazing. I love the perpetual calendar, the aventurine, all those beautiful products. But the first picture didn't pay tribute to this amazing piece and all the work that the people had done behind it. And then it's easy behind a computer to destroy it. And people took a lot of pleasure to do that. And to see it from being in a brand, I mean, it really kind of broke my heart thinking of the people who have been behind this project and seeing those people just trashing it without even giving their names, just because it's easy. But as you said, I think it will be a great success. I think things that take time to being appreciated are the most successful. And I'm sure in a few years we'll look at this watch as an icon.
I think if you go and you go around all the stands, I went around them all last night, you'll see probably the busiest one is AP. So I think that tells something in itself.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And we have time for one more question, which is this gentleman right up here at the front. We'll get you a mic.
We start with Jim. So as a PR communications guy, mainly hedge funds, so a little bit dry. But you know, I wanted each of your perspectives on who is really doing it correctly. I mean, in a broader sense, I'd say Wendy's kills online with social media. I mean, I don't know who they've hired, but those guys are unbelievable. The smoking people, which everybody loves to see. I don't know if it sells sandwiches, but you know, who's doing it really, really well in watches right now?
When my 15-year-old daughter likes Daniel Wellington, and she points that out as a brand that does it incredibly well. And when she tears apart other social media feeds, and I think she's right. And they do a great job of engaging with their followers. I think they've got over 3 million. I think they do a really good job. And I think, you know, one of the things we've got to do as a luxury business is to look outside of just our business and look at other people that do it well. In watches, I think they're one of the groups that do it the best.
I mean, that's a really tough one because I think different people do it different ways. I think some of the small independents who actually have fun with it are probably some of my favorites. I have to be politically correct here. But I think, you know, I'm just thinking of brands like Tudor, who were not even in social media a few years ago and are now in it and engaging. I would say the main thing is for your brand, be engaging, you know, be different, be true. I go back to this every single time. Be authentic. Don't be corporate. You know, I think if you can stay away from being corporate, if you can really connect with your audience, I think those are some of the best brands out there. That's kind of what I go back to every time.
Going off what you were just saying is, you know, so say you're looking to partner with an influencer, right? Don't just go for the person that has 5 million followers. Because that person, and I remember someone telling me a story, a brand was coming to an agency, specifically said, we don't even want to talk to or talk about anybody who doesn't have under 5 million. The people that they ended up looking at had zero connection to this brand. Everything from age group to everything, and I found it, even from a brand side, right, from having been on that side, like, that they were so caught up in a numbers thing. And again, there's something to be said about that and creating a buzz and getting it out to a wider audience, because again, you're going to scroll through and that picture is going to pop up. But if that audience is engaging with this influencer, or this celebrity, or whomever it was, and you made me think about it because of Tudor, right, with Lady Gaga. So, but if that celebrity has zero relationship to the brand's followers, so to speak, or the people that buy that brand, then it's kind of just going to fall on deaf ears. It's not going to make an impact. It might last for a moment. So what I would say to a brand is, don't necessarily look at the numbers. And I think brands are getting smarter and smarter every day because they're seeing the engagement that someone has. Find that influencer, and sometimes it's the person with maybe 100,000 followers or 250 or 500,000 or whatever it might be. But the relationship that they have with a brand that they're wearing, those people react and will actually follow through and buy because of the relationship that they had. So don't necessarily look what everybody else is doing. Stay true to you as the brand and what you want to achieve.
Well, it's, as a brand, it's difficult to judge the others, but I totally agree. I think the new generation of brands, the Kickstarters and those kind of brands have been doing very well because that was their main way of communicating and really integrating the holistic approach of social media and what they are and their audience. I think it's much easier to find brands that don't do it well than brands that do it well in the watch industry. I think we all need to learn from other industries. Yes, I think small independent brands like MB&F, Ressence, I think they have their message, they have their line, they have their holistic approach, and they're doing pretty well. Having talked to them recently, they're not satisfied with them, and we are not satisfied with what we do. I think we can always learn. Social media change, the landscape changed so fast that, you know, where we were strong 2-3 years ago, we're not anymore, and it's changing so fast, and that's why in the beginning we were talking about having young people involved. I think it's very important, and empowering them and telling them, like, go and find this new thing. How do we do today? How do we change? Because what works tomorrow might not work tomorrow. You know, what works today that might not work tomorrow, and we always need to be on our toes and really understand how these things is evolving. It's huge. It's kind of a big monster that we don't master, and it's scary sometimes. But at the same time, that's fun to work with it.
Absolutely, and I think maybe that will lead us into whatever the changes are for maybe we can do this panel again in a couple years and see where we've come. But I think we're out of time for today. Thank you so much for coming and for listening and for the questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys.